Scorpio does not panic when life gets hard. Scorpio panics when life starts happening without their permission. That is the part most people never understand. People think Scorpio is obsessed with control because they love power, because they love intensity, because they secretly enjoy holding the upper hand. But that is not the real story. The real story is darker, deeper, and far more human than that. Scorpio does not cling to control because it feels glamorous. Scorpio clings to control because losing it feels like disappearing. It feels like standing inside your own life and realizing someone else, or something else, is now making the choices that shape your future. And for Scorpio, that is unbearable. This is the sign that can survive pain better than most people survive inconvenience. They can take heartbreak. They can take betrayal. They can take silence, pressure, distance, and disappointment. But uncertainty, powerlessness, the feeling of not knowing where they stand or what comes next, that gets under their skin in a way even pain cannot. Because pain is at least honest. Pain tells you something ended. Pain tells you something broke. Pain gives you something real to face. But uncertainty is different. Uncertainty keeps the door half open. It gives no clear answer, no clean ending, no stable ground. It leaves Scorpio suspended in a space they cannot trust and cannot predict. And once Scorpio feels suspended, something inside them starts tightening. That is when they become dangerous. Not loud, not dramatic. Dangerous in the way a quiet ocean becomes dangerous before a storm. Their eyes get sharper. Their silence gets heavier. Their instincts start scanning every detail. They begin noticing tone changes, timing shifts, missing effort, unclear motives, hidden patterns. They start reading what was not said, not just what was said. They pull back, not because they do not care, but because they suddenly care too much to stay exposed. This is what people miss. Scorpio's need for control is not usually about controlling others first. It begins with a desperate need to make sure their own life is still in their own hands. They can live with slow progress, but only if they chose that pace. They can live with silence, but only if they chose not to speak. They can live with sacrifice, struggle, and waiting, but only if it still feels like they are choosing the road they are on. The moment choice is taken away, everything changes. That is why Scorpio struggles so much with vague situations. Tell them the truth, even if it hurts, and they will deal with it. But leave them in mixed signals, half-promises, emotional confusion, or unstable ground, and their mind starts going to war. Not because they are overreacting, because in their world, lack of clarity is lack of safety. Scorpio needs to know where they stand. Not because they are needy, not because they are weak, because they understand how quickly life can turn when you trust the wrong thing for too long. That is why they ask questions other people avoid. That is why they pay attention to tiny inconsistencies. That is why they hate being rushed into trust, rushed into surrender, rushed into dependence. Scorpio would rather move slowly with full awareness than jump blindly into something that steals their power one piece at a time. And this is where it gets deeper. What Scorpio really fears is not chaos itself. It is the feeling of being trapped inside chaos with no way to protect themselves. It is the fear of waking up one day and realizing they handed too much of their future to people who were careless with it. Too much of their heart to someone unclear. Too much of their peace to a system they never truly believed in. Too much of their life to circumstances they never agreed to accept. That fear lives everywhere. It shows up in love first. Scorpio does not just want passion. Passion is easy. Passion can happen in one night, one glance, one conversation, one dangerous moment. What Scorpio wants is something much rarer than passion. They want emotional certainty. They want to feel that what is building is real. They want to know that the person in front of them means what they say, feels what they show, and is not slowly pulling them into a story with no name and no destination. That is why confusing love is so painful for Scorpio. Not because they cannot handle intensity, but because they can. The problem is that they can handle depth, but they cannot relax inside emotional fog. If you are all in one day and distant the next, Scorpio feels it. If your words sound warm, but your actions are unstable, Scorpio feels it. If the relationship has chemistry but no direction, connection but no clarity, affection but no grounding, Scorpio feels the threat long before anyone else admits there is one. And once they feel threatened, they start trying to regain control. Sometimes that looks like becoming private. Sometimes it looks like testing. Sometimes it looks like pulling back before they get pulled apart. Sometimes it looks like acting colder than they really are. But underneath all of it is the same truth. Scorpio is trying to make sure they do not become helpless inside someone else's uncertainty. And love is only one battlefield. In work, money, and personal ambition, Scorpio is the same way. They do not need everything to be easy. Easy does not impress them. But they do need to feel that their effort is leading somewhere real. They need to feel that they are not building a life on unstable ground. Scorpio can be incredibly disciplined when they believe their choices still matter. Give them a path they can shape, and they become relentless. Give them a future that feels dependent on other people's confusion, laziness, broken promises, or chaos, and you will see a side of Scorpio that cannot rest. Because Scorpio does not want to drift through life. They want leverage. They want direction. They want the right to decide. They want to know that if things fall apart, they still have a move to make. That is why they often keep backup plans in silence. That is why they rarely reveal every thought, every fear, every next step. It is not always secrecy for the sake of mystery. A lot of the time, it is protection. Scorpio feels safer when there is still something no one can take from them. A hidden option. A private truth. A door they can still open if everything else collapses. And yet, here is the twist that makes this sign so complicated. The very thing that protects Scorpio can also exhaust them. Because trying to control everything is heavy. It means always scanning, always anticipating, always preparing for the hidden cost, the betrayal, the shift, the surprise. It means struggling to fully rest because rest requires trust. It means sometimes reading danger into every delay, every silence, every unexpected turn. It means living as if peace must always be verified before it can be believed. And that is where Scorpio begins to suffer. Not from weakness, but from overprotection. There comes a point where control stops feeling like strength and starts feeling like a cage. Scorpio may tell themselves they are staying alert, staying smart, staying safe. But sometimes what they are really doing is gripping life so tightly that nothing can breathe, including them. They start managing every possibility, every emotion, every variable, until even joy feels suspicious because joy cannot be fully controlled either. That is the hidden tragedy. Scorpio wants a life that belongs to them. But if they are not careful, their fear of losing control can become the very thing that steals their freedom. Because freedom is not just power. Freedom is also the ability to exist without needing certainty every second. The ability to move forward without guarantees. The ability to trust yourself even when the future refuses to explain itself. And that is the lesson Scorpio is here to learn. Not how to control everything. How to remain powerful when they cannot. That is the evolution of Scorpio. The younger Scorpio wants mastery over the environment. They want all the cards face up, all motives exposed, all risks measured, all exits visible. But the stronger Scorpio, the wiser Scorpio, the transformed Scorpio begins to understand something deeper than control. True power is self-command. It is controlling your standards, your response, your boundaries, your loyalty, your energy, your pace, your next decision. It is knowing that even if someone lies, you can still leave. Even if life shifts, you can still adapt. Even if a door closes, you can still choose another direction. Even if the future gets cloudy, you do not disappear inside the fog. That is when Scorpio becomes almost unstoppable. Because now they are no longer trying to dominate every external outcome. Now they are anchored in something stronger. They trust their own instincts. They trust their own resilience. They trust their ability to survive truth, survive endings, survive change, survive the unexpected. They stop begging life to be predictable and instead become the kind of person who can face unpredictability without losing their center. That is real control. Not controlling who stays. Not controlling what happens. Not controlling every twist of fate. Controlling who you become when fate twists. And maybe that is why Scorpio is one of the most misunderstood signs in the Zodiac. People see the guardedness, but not the vulnerability underneath it. They see the intensity, but not the fear behind it. They see the need for answers, but not the emotional cost of living without them. They call Scorpio controlling without asking what created that need in the first place. Because underneath all that steel is one very raw truth. Scorpio is terrified of living a life that no longer feels like their own. Terrified of being trapped. Terrified of being manipulated. terrified of waking up too late, terrified of realizing they stayed somewhere too long, trusted something too deeply, ignored their instincts one too many times, and handed away the power they were supposed to protect. That is why Scorpio fights so hard for clarity. That is why they resist passivity. That is why they need to feel they still have a choice. Not because they are impossible to love, not because they are too much, but because for Scorpio, choosing is surviving. So if you are a Scorpio, hear this clearly. Your need for control did not come from nowhere. It came from wanting your soul to stay intact. It came from wanting your life to belong to you. It came from learning, in ways maybe no one ever saw, that being passive can be dangerous when your heart is deep and your instincts are strong. But your next level does not come from tighter control. It comes from deeper self-trust, from knowing that not every unknown is your enemy, from knowing that uncertainty does not erase your power, from knowing that even when life stops making sense, you still know how to protect your peace, honor your truth, and choose your next move. And if you have ever felt that silent panic of not knowing where you stand, if you have ever hated vague energy more than bad news, if you have ever felt your whole body resist the idea of letting life just happen, then you already understand Scorpio at a level most people never will. Because Scorpio does not fear pain the way people think. Scorpio fears powerlessness. And once they learn the difference, that is when their real transformation begins. If this hit deep, like this video, share it with the Scorpio in your life, and subscribe for more Zodiac truths that go deeper than the surface. And in the comments, tell me this. What is harder for you personally, pain or powerlessness?